Yeah, I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but we're going to have some fun.
We're going to talk about something. Yeah.
All right.
Shall I introduce?
Yeah, you introduce,
Yeah.
and then we'll go into it, because I do have a few things that I actually want to chat to you about.
So, here we are today. No, we're not going to say today. We're not supposed to do that. I'm here with producer Louis, who's told me that I'm not supposed to say things like we're here today. So we're here to talk about podcasts in the B2B context, why on earth we're doing one, who should be listening to it, and what you can expect to hear from us going forward. Welcome, producer Louis.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's nice to have you.
Well, I suppose we have to go back to the beginning of like how the hell this actually all came about, and why we're actually sitting here opposite each other chatting. And I suppose I'm going to put the question straight back to you. Has podcasting or something like this been on your mind as a marketer for Blue Ocean?
Yes, it has. In all truth, it's something that I, as a marketer, consume. You know, I have my own podcast that I sometimes listen to, not always because I ride my bike rather than taking the bus, but when I'm on the bus, 100%, I'm in the market for it then. But I'll freely admit that it's felt daunting. It's felt like a big challenge. Like, do I have the authority? Do I have the ability? Do we have the equipment, the capabilities? So it's felt daunting. It's felt prohibitive.
So for me, podcasting has become a bit of a buzzword. And there are a plethora of podcasts out there. I mean, as you know, there's hundreds and thousands to choose from, yet you have yours that you listen to. So for me, as a producer, and I am predominantly a filmmaker or a videographer, for lack of a better word, and an editor. I truly believe, having come into this organization, we do B2B, Blue Ocean Agency, that it is the catalyst to a lot of content creation, so that you can have the long form discussion about various topics. And there's a caveat to that I am not a marketer, I am not a salesperson, I know very little about B2B, but I do know about the practical aspects about filming these, editing these, recording these, etc., etc. So I want to unpack a little bit about what your thinking process is behind actually pulling the trigger and actually starting something like this as a podcast, first of all, for yourself, for Blue Ocean as the agency, and what benefits you can see coming out of this.
That's a good question. As an agency and being in the B2B space, inherently we need to achieve essentially two things through the marketing function of the business. One is that we need to build awareness. We need our audience to know that we exist and when to call the Ghostbusters. That's, paramount. If we don't have awareness, we've got nothing. Building on that, we need to develop trust. Trust is the currency of business to business. And one of the things that we know from our own strategy as core to what we deliver and how we build trust is our people, right? People trust people. It doesn't matter whether you're buying service systems or whether you're buying engineering, whatever it is. There's a trust component that the people in that business will see you right, will help you deliver, will get things done for you. So for us, the podcast it's a vehicle, right? It's a thing that lets us do a number of, it lets us cover a multitude of sins, right? So what it does, it lets us have these dialogues where we can build authoritative long form content, where we can bring our people like you, like me, like Shannon, like whoever, in front of our audience, so that we're building awareness of Blue Ocean, but we're also building that trust component that we know what the fuck we're talking about.
100%.
But then it's also feeding the rest of the engine. Podcasting it's one media format. We run a lot of different work. We run comms that go out through LinkedIn. We have lead generation campaigns that use lead magnets. That's all long form content. And having been in marketing for a while, I've done my time in the seat. Getting started is half the battle fought, but then being able to sustain work relies on having a backlog that gets you out of jail free, right? If you can build yourself up a nice head of steam and a body of work that you can repurpose and reuse and put here, put there, put here, it buys you the time to think about the bigger stuff and actually to just build that cadence off the back of what you've already built.
Looking forward, I'm going to unpack that a little bit more, because it's been in your awareness. You've said it succinctly that it is a vehicle. It is something that you can use to create the awareness, to build trust, which rightly, as you say, people buy from people. And for me, as someone behind the lens, what I've realized is that everyone in the organization, whether it's here or in any other organization, knows their shit. But the problem is, it's sometimes hidden behind a brand or behind an agency. So the trust element is behind that brand, that logo. Where I find if we can have a conversation about something, I get under the hood. I get under the, who is this person? Do they love what they do? Can I trust this person? I want to know more. Does that make sense?
It does, because we would often talk about there being essentially three pillars that will build trust. One is proof, like actually being able to show people that you've done it before, that you can do it again. That's an organizational thing. People is the other. And then that you've got the process within the organization for replicability. Like in business to business, it makes such a big difference. Anyone can be successful once, right? Anyone can do something well once. It might be luck, it might be good fortune, whatever. But being able to actually, like you said, get under the hood and say, look, there is a brand here. Of course there's a brand, there's a Blue Ocean brand. But each of us has our own brand as well. We have our own flavor that we bring, the way of thinking that we do things, and inherently the business that we're in, we still sell creativity, we sell people's problem-solving ability, we sell their knowledge, their experience, their empathy in some cases. So
very much so. I agree with all those points, because that's about, and it's about listening to that and getting that out there. So here's a question for you. What do you hope to achieve with this podcast? Where, all things being equal and everything going right, what would your ideal scenario look like down the line? And I'm not going to put a year or 2 years, because consistency is a very relevant point to this.
It is.
What would it look like?
That's twofold. Selfishly, this needs to be, over time, an engine that builds awareness, trust, and actually that grows our business. Of course, why else? We're all here to make money that pays our mortgages and feeds our kids and all that kind of thing. So of course that has to happen. What I would like to see it achieve more than that, though, is I've been a marketer for nearly 15 years.
Long time.
And I've been
around.
But I've also been the only marketer in a business, right? And that's that's a hard place to be. Certainly in New Zealand, that expectation of what the marketer is able to achieve with just their hands is enormous, and it's misaligned with the reality of what the world actually looks like. It's even more so compounded in industries that are sales heavy or that are built from the old guard. A lot of the time we see with engineering companies and that sort of thing, that they've grown organically from someone who was a grafter 30, 40 years ago. They had a dream. They were dissatisfied with the status quo. They went out and did, and it grew, and they grafted, and they sold, and they delivered their way up. So the marketing role there has kind of been this support function, right? It's been something that's plugged in almost after the fact.
Absolutely.
I would like to see this podcast help B2B marketers become more critical to B2B businesses in New Zealand.
Great answer. So as I understand, I'm going to say it back to you. So you want to help B2B marketers be better B2B marketers?
100%. And also, hopefully give them a little bit of ammunition to send up the chain and around the organization to help them get done what those businesses need, because it's not always easy for them to see the wood for the trees.
So where's the gap then? So where's the gap for us to actually be able to fill a niche? I know it's another buzzword, but how can we help?
How can we help? Business to business is different to business to consumer in a number of ways. It's very similar in others, don't get me wrong.
So I'm going to stop you right there. Just as a very brief, just explain to me what B2B is versus B2C for someone who's literally just found this podcast and they're like, hey, I like the look of that color, for lack of a better word.
Okay, B2B stands for business to business, B2C, business to consumer.
Cool.
I think probably the single biggest difference is that when you're selling to another business, the people who are buying are spending someone else's money.
Right.
If you're talking about business to consumer and you're selling them a can of Coke or a pair of shoes,
there we go.
The risk stops and ends. It starts and it ends with them, unless it's a house and they're buying with their partner. But on a business to business level, you're talking about spending someone else's money with an expectation of turning that money into something else. So inherently, the risk profile is very different for the people who are making those decisions. And there's also more to gain. You make the right call in your career and you invest in the right thing now and, spend the right time, then it grows and grows and grows and grows. So there's the risk reward factor is significant within business to business. And I'm going to add on to that that we live, breathe and operate in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we are an island nation that's this big. We have a population that's smaller than most US cities, and we're talking about an entire country. So that has its challenges. Typically we as an agency will be dealing with businesses that do a number of different things. They're either bringing innovation into the country and supporting a customer base here with it. They're developing innovation and selling it overseas because that's where the market is. Or they're working within service industries here within the country that support other businesses to do one of those other two things, basically.
Gotcha.
So one of the reasons that we wanted to kind of push this was that there's a plethora of information, like you said. You can find B2B podcasts up the wazoo. There's hundreds of them already. But our little nation is a wee bit different, just because of size, but also because of mindset. So understanding what makes a business-to-business organization successful in New Zealand is different to what makes one successful in the US, for example.
Gotcha.
So when we're talking like the US, you can run, as I say, conversion rate optimization, for example. You want to run CRO on your website. The statistical difference between a 1% and a 1.5% conversion rate in a market of millions, of tens of millions, stacks up, right?
Yep.
But here it's maybe one opportunity missed a year. So there are other areas that you need to understand and focus in order to be able to actually achieve that growth goal that businesses here are chasing.
Cool. Okay. We won't go on too much about this because I think there's a lot more that we could talk about. But here's something I want to ask you. If you had an ask of the audience, or if you had a request for the people listening, what would that be? And who specifically would you want that to give that message to?
It's a good question. I would ask marketers to approach with an open mind. I would ask them to try stuff. We're going to talk about a number of different things over the series of this, over the course of this podcast. Some of it's going to be relevant to some people, some of it won't be. But there will always be insight, hopefully, that lets you go and do something different tomorrow, or lets you try something different tomorrow. I would also ask that when we bring business leaders in, which we will be doing, we're not just going to be in an echo chamber of marketers talking to marketers. That's not the goal here, because we don't exist in a vacuum. We need to bring people from finance, leadership. So we'll have those people. We'll have those people coming along for the ride as well. Send it up the chain. Send it to them. Try and get some. Use this as a Trojan horse. If you need to knock on the door of the CEO, throw this in first and say, hey, look, this is something that we could think about, and then go and build an argument to go and do great things.
Let's leave it there for now. I think it's a great start. I think we're on the right path, and I'm excited about the journey and the learning curve that I'm going through here. So
I'm going to ask you one.
Can I
ask you one last question before we wrap? So you, as producer Louis, what do you hope to achieve through this journey?
I'm stretching myself here. This is a stretch. I've always wanted to produce a podcast, and I find it fascinating how, when I was growing up, we listened to radio, and radio told stories. So it was an audio medium. You had to listen to it. And I remember listening to various programs, I can't remember specifically, on the radio. And it's nostalgic, and it's you learned something through it because we didn't have the TV or the technology or the social media platforms that we've got now. And I think today, people are in a position to be able to choose what they want to consume. And I think there's an opportunity here to disseminate information in a fun and an engaging way that drives lots of things. First of all, building a brand. I'm building my own brand. I'm starting new in a new country. And it affects the bottom line because we want business, we want awareness. I mean, I think we need to call a spade a spade. So I'm stretching myself. I'm very good at putting film and video together. And I think this is a start for a company that I've joined, which I'm very excited about, that has that belief and that desire to do something. They might not know all the ins and outs of it.
And we might jump in our own shadow.
No. Say?
Well, what I'm saying there,
Yeah.
you definitely got the belief. I think one of the things that certainly, from my perspective as a marketer, having thought about podcasts for a while, is jumping at your own shadow. Like thinking that it's going to be this great big leviathan of a thing.
100%. And this might fail.
Might do.
Let's. I mean, this might fail horribly. But there's been enough thought given into it that if we don't pull the trigger, if we don't start, they keep saying, just start.
Yeah.
Just start. Get up, show up,
rinse,
and repeat. have to end it there. So that's what I'm stretching myself, and I hope to. Let's see where it goes. Let's see. Feedback from the audience will be great. And my ask would be like, just give it a go. Just listen to it and spread it. Even if it's not for you, maybe someone's like, there's going to be there's a lot of knowledge here which I want to get out. So yeah.
Looking forward to doing that. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's have some fun.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.